Well, thank you very much, Michael. It's great to be here. Having arrived at the convention centre by water, I have to say Barangaroo is looking fantastic. That project's going very well. It's good to see it close up. Now, we live in times of change, of unprecedented change, both in the scale and in the pace of it. That change, of course, has improved our lives immeasurably in every respect. Think of all the technological advances, whether it's in the field of telecommunications or in medicine or in science. One thing we cannot do, however, is turn back that pace of change. This is the tenor of the times in which we live. So the challenge for all of us as leaders is to embrace those times and ensure we make ourselves as resilient, as agile, and as capable of making the times our friends. Make volatility your friend, not your foe, because you're not going to be able to change the nature of the rapid pace and the enormous scale of change all around us. And that is what our government is doing. That is what the coalition government is doing right now. We're helping Australians seize the opportunities that come with change, while of course protecting against the risks that it brings. Now, my commitment has always been to provide strong and effective economic leadership. A strong economy is the foundation of our prosperity and our security. It gives every Australian the opportunity to succeed and realise their dreams, to get a job, to get a better job, to start and grow a business. Now, creating more jobs is at the heart of all of our policies. Our enterprise tax plan, building an advanced local defence industry with the high-tech jobs that support it, export opportunities through our big free trade deals. The TPP, as I'll come to in a moment, is being signed this week, tomorrow in fact, record infrastructure investment and so many programs to get people into work. The PATH program, for example, that I know many of you are familiar with, tackling youth unemployment. And these policies are working. We're giving business the confidence they need to invest, grow and hire, and we're starting to see stronger confidence from consumers as well. But last calendar year, 403,100 jobs were created. 2017, the strongest year on record for job creation. 75% of those jobs were full-time, 80% of those were in the private sector. Jobs growth has easily outstripped population growth. Female participation is at near record highs. 60% of new jobs last year went to women, and the gap between the male and female workforce participation is 10.4%, an all-time low. The gender pay gap, still too high, has narrowed, however, further over the last 12 months to 15.3%, an important point in the week of International Women's Day. But there's more work to do. The challenge is to build on this, to implement the reforms that will enable us to take advantage of the disruption and the change in our region. Now, we've recently broken the world record for the longest run of economic growth, 26 years, despite two of the largest shocks in generations: the mining boom, the huge surge in commodity prices that went up and obviously then came down, and of course the global financial crisis itself. Now, this wasn't good luck. It was the social and economic dividend from the reforms of years past, all championed by the Australian Financial Review in potent editorial after editorial, Michael. Well done. Yes, we encountered, pity not enough of the Labor Party and the crossbench read it. Maybe that's the antidote we need. We encountered tremendous headwinds, gale force conditions, you might say, but instead of sinking or being dashed against the rocks, the economy adjusted course. Unburdened by poorly designed regulation, our economy was agile enough to adapt to the conditions and steer a safe course through them. Our exchange rate is flexible. Overall price growth has been subdued. Interest rates have remained relatively low. And because of its flexibility, the economy has not responded to recent challenges by shedding hundreds of thousands of jobs. Despite improving economic conditions, however, we have had modest average real wages growth. I'm sure Phil Lowe's just spoken about that. But when faced with a choice of modest wages growth or longer queues, long queues at Centrelink, only a blinkered ideologue or the most craven populist would choose policies that result in higher unemployment, and they are exactly the policies that are being advocated by Mr Shorten and the Labor Party. Any attempt to regulate our way out of modest wages growth will put a handbrake on job creation. The laws of supply and demand have not been suspended. The only lasting answer to slow wages growth is stronger economic growth, creating more investment and more demand for labour, leading to higher productivity and higher wages. And we're doing this by creating stronger business conditions which lead to more investment, higher productivity and more competition for the nearly 90% of workers who are employed in the private sector. Now, a key part of this is ensuring that business has the confidence to invest. Confidence requires certainty, the certainty that politicians will not withdraw their support for a project or revoke an environmental licence on a political whim. Now, regrettably, comments from our opponents in the Labor Party and Mr Shorten in particular over the past few days represent a genuine sovereign risk that would ultimately cost jobs and investment. So there is no substitute for strong economic growth to create new opportunities. Now, how we manage the economy in the times of unprecedented change of which I've spoken is absolutely critical. The decisions we make today lay the foundations for Australia in decades to come. So it's vital that we continue economic reform, not in spite of the challenging times we face, but because of them. Our government's reforms across education and energy, tax and trade give Australians the best chance of success when they compete. We want our students to graduate with the right skills for the 21st century: strong literacy and numeracy, critical and creative thinking, and a deep understanding of technology. A strong level of funding for schools is vital, and as you know, for our part, we have committed to record levels of funding. But even more important is making sure that money delivers better outcomes for our students. We want to raise standards, and we want to make sure our education system is set up so every child can meet them. And that's why, as part of our reforms to school funding, we commissioned the Review to Achieve Educational Excellence in Australian Schools, led by David Gonski, to determine the most effective teaching and learning strategies to improve school results. The report, I'm pleased to say, is on track to be completed by the end of the month, and we'll continue to work with states and territories to deliver evidence-based approaches to improve outcomes in schools. And just as our education reforms will make our students more competitive, our energy reforms make business more competitive. Now, our predecessors failed to address the challenge of integrating energy and climate policy, and that has contributed to distortions in energy markets that have driven up costs and undermined the competitiveness of our big energy users. Although energy prices still remain too high, our interventions are returning order to energy markets which are essential to bringing prices down over time, as Josh Frydenberg observes in a good op-ed piece in the paper today. Now, the Australian Energy Markets Commission forecasts electricity prices will fall 12.4% over the coming 2 years. Wholesale gas prices, which were heading past $16 a gigajoule, are in single figures now. They should be trading at or around the LNG netback price, and they weren't. There was a complete failure in the market. And the pipeline reforms, of course, are going to bring greater competition. A significant part of this turnaround is the certainty delivered by the National Energy Guarantee, which uses the existing dynamics of competitive markets, its contracts and trading, to deliver reliability and meet our climate commitments. The alternative would be to impose constraints or taxes that undermine energy markets. Now, Snowy 2.0 is going to reduce volatility in electricity markets, providing the necessary storage and backup to address the challenges posed by intermittent generation. As you know, one of the big features of the electricity business is that the cost of generation from wind and solar is getting less every year. Cost of generation is going down. However, the sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time, and that's not going to change. So the big challenge is storage, and storage at scale. Now, our decision to acquire the state shares in the company announced last week is not only a big win for infrastructure investment in New South Wales and Victoria, well over $6 billion, but it gives the Snowy Hydro Board and management the added confidence that comes from 100% Commonwealth ownership to deliver this vitally important project. Now, turning to company tax, we are committed to further tax reform. We want all Australian businesses to be able to take advantage of our globalised and increasingly digitised economy. There is a great buzz in the US economy right now and growing confidence in the wake of recent tax reforms, which of course included reducing the US company tax rate to 21%. Now, to be competitive in the global race for capital, we must bring down our own tax rates. I gather Phil Lowe made this point earlier, that whatever you may think in a theoretical world of what company tax should be, we are in a competitive environment. We have to have a competitive tax rate, and this has been, until relatively recently, absolutely a bipartisan acknowledgement. But I said the laws of supply and demand have not been suspended, and they never will be, but the laws of economic common sense have been suspended among our political opponents, which is why you keep on seeing them saying absolutely different things from one day to the next, whether it's to meet the demands of one audience or another, or to meet the populist political concerns at a time. So we need to bring down our tax rates on business, because when you increase the return on investment, you get more employment, you get more jobs, and you get better paid jobs because you get greater productivity. Now, when I was discussing tax with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin in Washington recently, he reminded me that when you're taxing corporations, you're taxing workers. He estimates that 70% of the benefits of those company tax cuts are passed on to workers. Since the US tax cuts, around 4 million workers have reportedly received an income boost, and Secretary Mnuchin believes the reform package will add 0.9% to GDP. That's an enormous fillip, and the benefits are already starting to flow to workers in more jobs and better paid jobs. It sent a signal, a call to arms for investors, and a warning to competitors. This year, lower tax rates will kick in for Australian businesses with a turnover of up to $50 million. At the moment, as you know, the progressive reduction in company tax is applying to companies with a turnover up to $25 million. Now, $50 million is not a giant company or a giant multinational. The overwhelming majority of those businesses for whom we have delivered these tax cuts are Australian-owned family businesses. But here's the thing, they employ more than half of the private sector workforce. So they're not corporate giants. I don't know how many of companies of $50 million turnover or less are represented here today, but half of Australia's workforce work for them. So, and that's where you're seeing this strong growth in jobs at the moment. We're backing businesses with lower tax rates. They're in a better position to compete, to invest, and of course take the opportunities, the big free trade deals. Now, tomorrow is going to be a very historic day in the cause of trade liberalisation when the TPP-11 is signed in Chile. Now, the United States is not a signatory, but by keeping the TPP alive at a time when many wrote it off, Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, and I ensured the door remains open for the US and indeed other countries to join in the future. I was discussing this with PM Abe only yesterday, and he recalled how when he came down to Sydney to visit not long after the change of administration in the US, and we had our discussions about TPP, and we decided then that we were going to keep the momentum going, and it's a great credit to him and his leadership and all the other countries in the TPP-11 that we've been able to do so. Now, our future lies in open markets and in a rules-based trading system that allows countries to compete on a level playing field. We know that when Australia competes on its merits, we win. Openness and flexibility are the keys to prosperity. Australia and the other nations that are signing the TPP-11 will continue to defend open markets and free trade. History teaches us there are no winners in a trade war. A trade war is a race to the bottom that makes us all poorer, leaves our citizens with less choice and fewer opportunities. Now, with our flexible and open economy and strong domestic institutions, we've weathered many economic storms. And that's why we must maintain a clear-eyed focus on delivering reforms that strengthen our economy for the long term and ensure that we, our children and our grandchildren can realise our dreams, their opportunities, our prosperity and security depend on free trade and open markets. And that's why Australia is such a strong voice for trade at home and around the world. Thank you very much.